Guess I get to see it with my own eyes. Jackpot. Devil May Cry.
What's going on, you guys? This is RBG, aka The Random Black Gamer, bringing you a video on a Devil May Cry remake. It's been about a year since we reported on this, but we didn't have enough clues to deduce that it was actually coming, but now more details have started to accumulate that makes me believe that this thing is actually going to manifest into something real, and we're going to talk about that today. But before we do so, I want to ask you guys to do me the biggest favor and like this video. Yeah, I know it's a bit annoying getting this request at the very beginning of a video before you watch it in its entirety, but YouTube's algorithm encourages it. So if you rock with your boy and you know I'm gonna bring you that awesome content, then smash that like button. But if by any chance you just so happen to be new to this channel and you feel like I've wasted 10 minutes of your time that you can't get back, then by all means feel free to retract that like and give it a dislike. Just rate the video. But yeah guys, as I said, I originally reported on this thing last year, I believe in February, but I stated before that these details were very ambiguous and that we should take it with a very small grain of salt because there just wasn't enough info to go off of. But it seems like we're getting closer and closer to that Devil May Cry remake, and it looks like we're going to be going back to the very beginning, which is Devil May Cry 1. Apparently this leak came from somebody who's not necessarily known in the ecosphere of video game leaks. They go by the name of Stevie Wonder, but it has been backed up by a more reputable leaker by the name of Dust Gollum, who is the go-to leaker for all things Capcom and is usually about 90% on the money when it comes to accuracy. Not only have they confirmed that we are going to be getting a remake to Devil May Cry 1, but they also alleged that Capcom had a meeting in the summer of 2022 where they greenlit remakes for Resident Evil 0, Resident Evil 1, and Resident Evil Code Veronica. Shortly afterwards, a number of fan projects using those titles for inspiration were shut down. It's also claimed Resident Evil 10 is in development, with Resident Evil 2 protagonist Claire Redfield set to return. So there's a lot of things going on in that big whirlwind of Capcom ideas, and it looks like they're going to be manifesting soon because we already know that this company has seen a major resurgence in terms of its popularity. Like, it's crazy to even think that at one point Capcom barely even had a pulse and they were on the verge of death due to all these weird decisions they were making with some of their games, such as Resident Evil 6 and Street Fighter 5. But as luck would have it, that would all change once they started developing games with their proprietary software, the RE engine, which funny enough people mistakenly call the Resident Evil engine, especially given the fact that the first game it was actually utilized for was Resident Evil 7 and would go on to be Capcom's preferred engine for developing other Resident Evil games. But the RE is actually short for Reach for the Moon, hence the logo that features a hand reaching out to what looks to be an eclipsed moon. But yeah, to say that Capcom has been successful in recent years would be an understatement because they've been exceptionally successful. Like, they've been riding an unprecedented 11-year streak of revenue and operating profit growth, which can be mainly attributed to the RE engine's overall efficiency to develop games in a timely fashion. We're talking an engine that delivers high-end visuals while maintaining a stable frame rate, even on modest hardware. As I mentioned earlier, we've seen a resurgence in the popularity with Resident Evil, with them starting off with Resident Evil 7 and doubling back around with remakes to RE2, RE3, and RE4, which have all sold tens of millions of copies. RE Requiem sold over 5 million copies in less than a week, and Pragmata, which is their latest IP, was able to pull in 1 million sales in the first 48 hours of its release. So as you can imagine, Capcom is making money hand over fist, and I'm pretty sure other developers are looking at them like, man, what can we do to get that same kind of success? Like, I would not be surprised if Square Enix has been trying to replicate the success that Capcom has had. They're trying to figure out what that formula is, man. But yeah guys, as you're aware, not only have we gotten all those remakes for some of those classical games like Resident Evil, and we've seen a few new entries, but the RE engine was also used to power Devil May Cry 5. But it's been 6 years since we had a Devil May Cry game on consoles, and I was wondering if they were actually going to go back around and do the same thing that they did with Resident Evil, and that looks to be the case. One of the things that I questioned though was where they were going to start, because as you guys are aware, Devil May Cry is this game that has all these different releases, but the third installment is considered the prequel of the franchise, and I thought that it would be a good idea to start with that one, because that's the entry that essentially revived the popularity of Devil May Cry after it almost went under with Devil May Cry 2, not to mention that the DMC3 Dante has served as the definitive archetype for the character moving forward in the sequels. We're talking overall personality as well as gameplay, but those elements were most commonly associated with the game's director Hideaki Itsuno, who, as you guys are aware, departed Capcom Capcom a couple years ago, so I wasn't quite sure who they were going to get to helm this project. The only person I can think of was Hideki Kamiya. If you guys aren't aware, he's the creator of Dante and Leon, and he would later on go on to create Bayonetta. But now he's back at Capcom, and he's currently working on the upcoming Okami sequel, which will also be developed using the RE engine. And I feel like if he does have that time, then that's going to give him more familiarity with this software, and maybe that'll motivate him to want to double back around to an old game that he worked on, because he was the creative director of Devil May Cry 1. I wouldn't be surprised if there are things that he wished he could have done the first time around but simply couldn't because of hardware limitations, but now the possibilities are pretty much limitless. And what I like about this, right, is that even though we are doubling back around to these older games and doing remakes, is the fact that they're using them as a launchpad to connect to a future installment, similar to how they did with Resident Evil 4 Remake and how it connects to Resident Evil Requiem. Like, if you notice, they used the same face model for Leon that they had been using since Resident Evil 2 Remake. The same goes for the cutscenes. You would see Requiem utilize the cutscenes from RE2 Remake as well as RE4 Remake, basically confirming that they weren't just making these remakes, there was always going to be a plan to make them connect to a newer entry in the series. Not only that, but it keeps the overall tone consistent, and that's one of the things that I've always hated about the Devil May Cry games, because they are all over the place when it comes to tone and Dante's personality, where he goes from this arrogant demon hunter who's having a good time in Devil May Cry 1 to this very boring and emo character in Devil May Cry 2. I don't know about you guys, but I always found that to be off-putting, and even though they pivoted with Devil May Cry 3, I always wish that there was this consistency there in regards to Dante's character. But now that they're allegedly doing this remake for Devil May Cry 1, it's an opportunity to perfectly align each installment. We're talking a character that's going to keep the same personality all the way through, and hopefully he acknowledges the things that he's been through in each game. This also gives Capcom the chance to actually utilize the things that come from the expanded DMC universe, such as the graphic novels and manga. Like, I think I speak for every DMC fan when I say that we want to see other characters that were only featured in these different expansions, such as Nell Goldstein, and I would love to see what Sparta was like instead of just getting all these brief mentionings of the character. Things like that that'll make these games feel new and not just one-to-one remakes, actually add something to them. And then once it's all said and done and we've gotten all the remakes leading up to Devil May Cry 5, we can actually get a new installment in Devil May Cry 6, which acknowledges all the things that have been set up in those previous remakes and continues them in this new installment. That's something that I really feel like they're gonna do, because like I said, they've done it with Resident Evil, starting off with Resident Evil 2 and segueing into Requiem. Like, I wouldn't even be surprised if they use the same face model for Dante that they used in Devil May Cry 5 just to keep things consistent. This also gives Capcom the opportunity to utilize the brand synergy tactic, where they could potentially use the hype of the Devil May Cry Netflix anime, which I know a lot of you guys are going to say that doesn't necessarily do a good job of depicting Dante and all the other characters, but it has been generating hype for the casual audience and actually getting them to check out the games that the anime is based on. As of the recording of this video, the new season should be dropping today, and I'm not sure if I'm correct on this, but I'm pretty sure they've already been greenlit for a new season, because despite the pushback from the DMC hopeful, it has been performing relatively well on the platform, and Netflix usually likes to continue that momentum. And if they keep it going, I have a nagging suspicion that this will perfectly segue into the upcoming DMC 1 remake that we're going to be getting, because like I said, it's going to provide the perfect brand synergy and it's going to contribute to more sales for the game. And you never know, maybe this new season of the Devil May Cry anime actually fixed some of the issues that we were having with the previous season, where they actually allowed Dante to be the powerful goat that he is instead of being completely immobilized by demon bullets. You know, things like that that are actually going to bring people back would be awesome, man. Like, I'm excited to see what the future holds for this franchise, and I can't wait to see what this remake is going to entail, because it's been far too long since we had a Devil May Cry game. We really need something new, and we need Hideki Kamiya to sit back in the director's chair, man. Show us what he's learned over the years with some of the other games he's developed, like Beautiful Joe and Bayonetta. But that's all I got for you guys today. I don't know when this game is going to drop, but you can bet your last dollar that I'm going to be covering it for you guys, just like we did with Devil May Cry 5. There's a lot of things that I hope to see in this project, and maybe I'll go over some of those details with you. Until then though, what do you guys think about this? Are you excited that we could potentially see a new DMC game in the form of a remake, or do you feel like they should just hurry up and give us DMC 6? Let me know in the comment section below. As always, I I ask that you like or dislike the video. It doesn't have to be a thumbs up, it can be a thumbs down. But if you really enjoyed this video, it would help me out tremendously if you shared it with all your friends and followers on all the different social media outlets. Sharing really makes a difference. But once again, this is RBG signing out on another video. I'll catch you guys later. Peace out.